We're number one in gas prices. Washington State hits highest gas prices in the country, surpassing California. What's causing this besides ridiculous progressive liberal policy? Here we go. Let's get into it. Recently, as gas prices have kind of elevated, a whole bunch of you guys and gals have sent me the cost of gasoline in your state, in your city, in your area. We go anywhere from California, which has, I have been surprised to see gas prices in California lower consistently. What you guys are sending me is lower consistently than what I'm paying here in Washington State in Bellevue. Granted, I'm just outside of Seattle, so everything's just more expensive in Seattle because, progressive politics and all that crazy stuff. Washington State currently holds the highest gas prices in the nation, with the average cost for a gallon of regular gasoline at $4.66. I routinely pay around $4.50, $4.69, $4.79, somewhere in there. If I pay in the low fours, I figure that I'm doing pretty good. We were told a number of years ago that the whole cap and trade carbon emissions thing would only cost us absolute pennies on the dollar per taxation for gasoline. Yeah, no. We've got some of the highest taxes on gas as well. Let's keep going. Washington has even overtaken California, notoriously number one when it comes to high gas prices and prices of everything else. Washington State we're honing in on California. California, you got to watch out. We're going to overtake you in so many of these categories because of the same policies that you've been running on. And now Washington State, we're a smaller geographic area, smaller population, but same terrible principles of progressive ideology that are basically running the state into the ground. But who's keeping track? Seattle metropolitan area reports the most expensive gas price within Washington, $4.81 a gallon. $4.81 a gallon. Washington drivers have always paid significantly more due to the state's high gas taxes. Policy. You don't say. Weird. And costs passed on from climate initiatives, again, policy, and recent taxes, again, leadership policy. Hey, let's throw in $9.2 billion worth of new taxes, and you know what? Things should go down. This should be a good start. Yeah, that's what our new governor did, Bob Ferguson. $9.2 billion in new taxes. Yeah, because you got to fund all these social programs with something. You got to fund all of these layers of absolute ridiculousness with something. And so you got to tax folks. You got to tax everybody, right? And recent taxes and localized increases have continued to spike prices. Starting July 1st, Washington's new gas tax added another 6 cents per gallon of unleaded to fund road projects and bridge maintenance. Washington State is so hosed, hiking the state's per gallon tax rate from 49.4 cents to 55.4 cents a gallon. It'll just be pennies on the dollar per gallon. Just pennies, absolute pennies. You won't even notice. You won't even know it's there. A few years later, hey, we are consistently highest gas prices in the United States. Per gallon prices for unleaded will also rise 2% every year to adjust for inflation. And diesel will increase by 3 cents more in 2 years. Then in 2028, it will increase 2% a gallon each year. Our costs here in Washington State, they are going to the moon. To the moon. Opinions among Seattle drivers are divided on whether the added cost is justified. All right. If you think they're justified, then you deserve to live here. You deserve to live here. Because when you go to other states and you're like, what in the world is going on? There's a 2 in front of their gasoline price. 2. Not 3. 2. Washington State's going to go with $5 a gallon gas here soon. So will California, with interviewees telling Como News that they're not seeing city or road infrastructure improvements that validate the price increase. California, with its just immense everything, income tax, inflation, housing costs, gas prices, rent, you name it, you name it. The constituents there, even though they vote for the same political leadership year after year after year in the big cities, they complain about the same thing. We're just not getting our money's worth. Well, who'd you vote for? Seattle doesn't pay money on the infrastructure here. You go down I-5, it bumps everything. So I don't think we spend enough money on that. You just got individual people going, I drove through a section of I-5 and it was really bumpy. We do have some insanely bumpy sections. I drive my Ford F-350, which is a one-ton. And if there's nothing in the back going down I-5, it's like thunk, thunk. I mean, it sounds like you're, breaking an axle or something. Because I-5 is so bumpy. It's like it's got those seams in the concrete that it's like a jump or something. I don't know. We're basically California now with our gas prices, added Quinn Sullivan, another Seattle resident. No. You are more expensive than California with our gas prices. More expensive. Number one. Some drivers are searching extensively for the best deals on gas. Good luck with that. Price spikes are leading to frustration. CO2 emissions tax from the Climate Commitment Act just went up another 6 cents as well, and that's going to keep going to the moon. State Department of Ecology emphasized that regulations like the Climate Commitment Act are not the primary factor in gas prices. Yeah, but they get you over the edge of becoming number one. They propel you into numero uno status. Spokesperson from Department of Energy explained that the recent increase of just over 3 cents per gallon mirrored the national trend. Oh, I feel so much better. I feel so much better now. Washington leads nation in expensive gas prices nearly 47% higher than the national average. West Coast, best coast. I'm dead serious. I mean, when you're number one in gasoline prices, what else you got to say? West Coast, best coast. We lead everything. Well, I mean, not the categories that you want to lead, but let's not be nitpicky, right? And if you're new to this channel, I am being completely sarcastic because we all know that all of this stuff is based on policy. This isn't just a, hey man, what happened? It's not. All of this is based on policy. All of this is based on decisions that our leadership has made consistently. And now our population is consistently voting even more blue because things are working out so great that why wouldn't they? So let's go on a run here. How about gas tax? This is straight up gas tax. 10 states with the highest gas tax in 2025. We start off with Rhode Island, Virginia, New Jersey, Maryland. Got Maryland. All right, so you got Washington, number 3. And then Illinois. Not a shocker. Illinois got the same deal. Just some terrible, terrible policy. And then California, 71 cents per gallon. Illinois at 66. Washington, 59. I mean, we are up there. We are doing work. How about we'll just kind of go through a bunch of other stuff that is really expensive because of progressive policy. Here you go. Hey, what would happen if we just took the minimum hourly wage and just spiked it through the roof, no matter whether businesses could tolerate it or not, no matter whether businesses could actually make a profit? We're just going to do it because, workers of the world unite. Seattle now faces the highest DoorDash delivery prices in the United States. Seattle, highest DoorDash, because you've got 14 different layers of taxation. You got this extra $1.99 fee. You got this extra $4.99 fee. I've covered it, and it's insane. It's insane. That's how you get the $32 burrito, and that's before delivery fee. It's some wild stuff. And yet, when you start to think about if you just look at Washington State's housing and how unaffordable Washington housing is, rent, mortgage, housing prices, doesn't matter. It's all based on policy. We have constricted the supply of housing by limiting what we can build, where we can build, how we can build it. And then when you've got policy that makes everything else expensive, being gasoline, that gets all coded into the cost of housing, cost of houses, because you got to drive trucks around to build those houses, right? You're not having AI do it. So every single layer of inflation that is super high in Washington state impacts our housing prices. And most notably, you've got layer after layer after layer of just nonsense in the building, in the building permitting process. All of that just has a ton of nonsense. And the cost of your dirt in Washington state is through the roof because you've restricted that supply. It's never going to go down. Not going down, it's going up. Here's another category you want to be number one in. Washington among states with the highest homeless population. And you've got Oregon and you've got California, I believe, that are out in front. Washington had the third highest population of people experiencing homelessness among U.S. states last year, trailing only California and New York. Well, New York's massive population. But those folks aren't really homeless per se. They are unsheltered, yet in the shelter system. So I don't really count New York because their homelessness deal is wildly different. Washington, California, and Oregon. We're number one. We're number one. West Coast, best coast. How many times can I say that? Here we go. Here's another one that kind of tells you the trajectory that we're heading in. Governor Ferguson signs the largest tax increase in Washington's history into law. $9.2 billion into law. When you have that kind of taxation just to the moon, guess what? You're not going in the right direction. Where was it? City of Dallas, I think, Texas. Maybe Plano. City of Plano, which is North Dallas. They were considering in the first time in 16 years raising their property taxes. Could you imagine here in Washington state if that would have happened? No, you can't because it's never going to happen. Got to fund all these ridiculous programs. I mean, who's going to fund them if the wealthy and the businesses don't pay? We need to have them pay their fair share. Bunch of nonsense. And you're driving out business. You're literally driving out business. Okay, let's keep going now. Uber rides. How about Uber rides? Cost more in Seattle than the rest of the United States. Now, everybody's got cars, right? So, you can't tell me it costs that much more to get a car up the West Coast, best coast to Seattle than it does in LA. You know what I mean? It's just not a thing. So what is it in the Uber ride thing that drives that up? The whole idea of costs and roadways and taxes and all that. It's the minimum wage. Because you've got this minimum wage that doesn't really work out. And so Uber, it doesn't allow businesses to be profitable because it's just based on, we think employees should get this. And then we'll work out, we'll let the employers really figure out if they can make it go. And if they can't, then they close their business down. We don't really worry about that. We're progressives. We don't really worry about that because, just don't really care about business. Although we want their tax dollars. We want their tax dollars. So Uber rides, they're expensive. They are. It'll cost me $60, $70 just to go handful of miles on Saturday evening, coming back from a show or something. $60, $70. And I go elsewhere and I'm like, that's all an Uber ride is here? That's nuts. That's insane. But yeah, that's what it is. Pacific region sees higher inflation than national average. West Coast, best coast, again. Here you go. Higher inflation. Things are costing more as we go. It's just, this is all based on having to tax the heck out of folks and all this layers of nonsense that are supposedly built into the system, have been legislated into the system to protect the consumer. It's like the rent control. It's like rent control. Washington State just enacted rent control. Granted, it's 7%, maybe 10%, capped at 10% increase in rent per year. And there's a bunch of exceptions. So 7 or 10% per year, I mean, that's a bunch. You got a $2,500 rent. Then you got, after that, whatever it is, limitation of time, you're going to bump that up to $2,750 and then $3,000. However those numbers work, 10% increment. So nobody's going to do that, because it's probably not warranted within the marketplace. But what you do see, and what you are seeing, is that construction of apartments are absolutely going to dive. And how do we know that? Well, let's check this out. The slowdown appears to be here to stay for now. In Seattle, apartment permitting was down 66% in the first 6 months of this year, of 2025. So you can say, well, interest rates almost doubled. The cost of getting that financing for multifamily has doubled, very expensive. But what the Seattle Times doesn't talk about here is that there's a bunch of builders out there sitting on the sidelines going, why would I build in Washington State? And you know what the answer is that they're coming up with? We're not. We're not building in Washington State. It's the lost economic opportunity. And that is so much of what's going on, is lost opportunity, because you got a whole bunch of homeless people living on the streets. People don't want to come into that neighborhood to shop at stores. People don't come there. Businesses close down, keeps on going. You know the cycle. It's that opportunity. That opportunity is not there because people don't want to go into that area of town to do their shopping. How about this? Seattle rent 30% above national average, among the priciest in U.S., report says. I don't even have to read the article to you, do I? We just say it, and well, there's yet another one. There is yet another kind of notch in the, what was it, bedpost back in the day? Or notch in your belt? Those were weird ways to describe body count, weren't they? You're like, what? You talking about what? Anyway, Seattle rent 30% above national average. And you combine that with this little nugget, permitting down 66% in the first 6 months of 2025. Do you think rents are going to go down? Do you think they're going down? Because we've been told that, more legislators legislators are really working on affordable housing. And, the rent increases were designed to, keep affordable housing in place, which we clearly do not have. I could go on and on and on, because all of these components are, things that affect our affordability. And Washington State has some of the least affordability in the nation, along with Oregon, along with California. And they've got the highest homelessness. And those all correlate to policy. You've got progressive policy. You got the cap and trade and the carbon emissions. I mean, what a bunch of nonsense. That is just truly some nonsense in there. Oh, we want to keep it clean. What are you doing? You are pushing more people to homelessness, quite literally, as we speak. California, the numbers on California's homelessness, even though they've slowed down a little bit, I mean, it is shocking. It's shocking how many people have fallen into homelessness. And some of that has to do with build it and they will come. And so many people in California that are homeless, they weren't there. They weren't, didn't have a job. They weren't living there when they became homeless. They migrated, because you've got these policies that not only increase the cost of living almost across the board universally, almost across the board, but they also increase the homeless population because we're so progressive. We're so tolerant. We push all this money, and then we got to tax businesses, and we got to tax wealthy individuals. And the cycle just continues. And people here in Seattle kind of look around and go, wow, this is really expensive. What happened? How did we get here? Well, you voted for people that are blue. That's what you did. And you think that this is a great idea. Now, so much of this, especially the housing, you don't have affordable housing anymore. Those days are gone. Those days are gone. You do not have the ability to really affect the supply as much as you need to from the standpoint of creating that supply so that pricing comes down. The best you're going to do is maybe hold steady, maybe hold level, maybe not have pricing go through the roof for a while, period of 6 months, whatever. That's the best you're going to do. But other than that, expect to have steep upticks because nobody wants to build in a progressive Democrat-run state. Hence, all of the population moves going on in the United States are going to typically Republican-led states. That's where the migration goes. California has more out-migration, less in-migration, and fewer babies being made because people flat can't afford it. Washington State is not far behind. Not far behind at all. Portland, Oregon has some of the highest commercial vacancy rates because they've just allowed homelessness to just, anything goes. So you put that on top of super expensive rent, super expensive gasoline, inflation, Uber, the list just goes on, right? It just keeps going on and on and on because that all has to do part and parcel with policy. And why are people moving to Republican states like Texas and Florida? They don't have all this nonsense in their life expense equations. They don't have this ridiculous cap and trade nonsense to the extent that Washington does. They're not closing down refineries like California is. They're not allowing homelessness and hard drugs to just run through their downtown core and then realize, oh, good Lord, that proposition didn't really work out. We need to reel back in the whole, you guys can do as many hard drugs as you want. It's policies like those that has gotten Washington State where it is. And the way Washington State is headed, which is West Coast, Best Coast, blue, blue, blue. We're getting more and more blue. Don't expect to see things change. Expect to see prices to continue to go to skyrocket because that is reality. That is just how the ball bounces in these cities. And yet you've got politicians. You got politicians like prime example is Gruesome Newsom, podcaster Newsom. He's throwing in, and I'm going to just do this one. How about take a quick look at contentious housing bill narrowly clears California State House. And this was lawmakers on Friday passed a hotly debated bill that would make it easier to build dense housing near transit. And it's a proposal aimed at lowering the prohibitively high cost of living. It's such nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. Your supply of housing in Los Angeles is such that it doesn't matter how many units you can physically build, you've still got greater demand, and your wages haven't caught up with where your pricing is by any stretch of the imagination. People flat can't afford a home. So this notion of lowering the prohibitively high cost of living, it's going to have zero impact on that as far as things going down. Zero impact. Same exact drill in Washington State. Expect things to go to the moon, anything else, and you're just living in a dream. You're living in a dream, which is what most Democrats are doing here in Washington State. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. Love to have you subscribe, do all that good stuff. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.